All right, so we're going to transition now from one deadly offense to another. There is a lot of questions that I have about Philadelphia, their offense. And I'm just going to start name dropping because when you look at this offense on paper, if Jalen Hurts can take the next step, which I know we said week one, we're only 1 week in, but the reports out of training camp were also really positive. He looked really, really damn good in preseason. Reports said that Jalen Hurts spent the entire offseason working on his passing game, working on his mechanics. He wanted A.J. Brown. They went out and got A.J. Brown. And, you know, we kind of ragged on Aaron Rodgers a little bit for not working with his wide receivers in the offseason. The exact opposite happened in Philly. From the second that they got A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown were almost inseparable. All reports say they spent the entire offseason after the draft working together. Mm-hmm. So, I'm going to throw Jalen Hurts out there.
So, when you're saying that, and see what happens when you have off-season OTAs and you play with people, look what happens.
Makes a difference. So
10 receptions, 155 yards.
Right? So we already know that Jalen Hurts is deadly as a runner out of the backfield. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly.
That makes me nervous. I'm going to be honest with you.
It does.
They hit really hard at this level.
They do. just ask, you know.
I'm just saying. I mean, but I will say this: Jalen Hurts is a massive human being, though, too.
He is, and if you watch his runs, he actually runs pretty smart. He does slide. He does get out of bounds. He tries to avoid those hits when he can. Lamar Jackson's another one of those quarterbacks that's already played several years in the league. Did get banged up a little bit last year, but that was an ankle.
And now, not to bring it down, I do like Philly.
Okay.
So, but it's extremely hard to play in Philly. So if something goes sideways,
what do you say about those Philly fans, Dave?
And I love Philly fans. They're passionate. They're very passionate.
I like the way
they're very passionate.
I like that. Hey, you got a brother that lives out of state. Where does your brother live?
Philly.
There you go.
So,
passionate fan base.
Passionate fan base.
All right.
So
let's talk about Jalen Hurts a little bit because it was a very, I'd say, adventurous and interesting offseason. So Jalen Hurts works on his passing game, works on his mechanics. They go out, they get A.J. Brown for him. Last year they drafted Devontae Smith in the first round. I know they traded Jalen Reagor. He still has a weapon, and Dallas Goedert, wrong team. Dallas Goedert is his tight end. He's got running backs capable of catching the ball out of the backfield. He's got Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell.
And there's an up-and-comer right there in Boston Scott. So,
and I'm a huge Kenneth Gainwell fan, so I think we can agree that there's a lot of weapons there.
There's weapons galore, but again, it also starts with that offensive line.
Right.
Because if you can't block, you can't do anything, whether you have star receiver or not.
And we're not, again, week one, we're not trying to insinuate too much, but I think anytime any NFL team goes out and puts up 38 points, that has to say something. They put up a 38 spot on Detroit this year.
Now,
and we are going to talk about
Granted, it is Detroit.
It is.
But that is not the old Detroit.
And we're going to talk about them next. That's the next team we're going to talk about. But, I mean, I think when you look at that offense, you're looking at an offense that can run, an offense that can pass. So from a fantasy perspective.
Well, okay. If you're looking from let me ask you this question.
Okay.
From a fantasy perspective, how many passing touchdowns did Jalen Hurts throw on?
No. They scored 38 points. There's 4 rushing touchdowns. So 1?
None.
Done? 0? All right. So, folks, but here's the thing. From a fantasy perspective, let's look at scoring settings. Mm-hmm. All right. So in typical leagues, you get 1 point for every 25 passing yards. In typical leagues, you get 1 point for every 10 rushing yards. So rushing yardage is more valuable than passing yardage.
Right.
Now, in our league, in the league that Dave and I are in, both of them, all touchdowns are worth 6 points. Doesn't matter if it's rushing, receiving, passing, doesn't matter. But in a lot of leagues, passing touchdowns are only worth 4. So I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to counter that by saying rushing yards and rushing touchdowns in most typical leagues are worth more. And they had 4 rushing touchdowns. Guess who had one of them? Jalen Hurts. Right?
So the question I come down to is if it's on the game, if it comes down to the game and it's 4th and goal, are you going to run it or are you going to pass it?
So that's an interesting question because last year I would have said the Eagles were probably going to run it with Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to do an RPO. They do something like that where he could have that choice. What's interesting is that this year, Kenneth Gainwell,
exactly,
Boston Scott, and Miles Sanders. All three of those guys had rushing touchdowns week 1.
Yes.
And folks, I know, I'm shocked too. Miles Sanders scored a rushing touchdown. Guess how many touchdowns he had last year? 0. Put up a big donut.
Oh, yes, he did.
So already in week 1, Miles Sanders has already outdone his touchdown, totally outdone his touchdown production from last year with 4 rushing touchdowns. Now, is that a fluke? Is that real? So here's my question that I have. This is why I'm bringing this up. So from a fantasy perspective, right, I did not draft Jalen Hurts in any of my leagues. I'm looking at it right now thinking, okay, I was wrong about A.J. Brown. I have A.J. Brown in a dynasty league, and I drafted him in a redraft.
It's too early. It's too early. It was week 1 against Detroit.
So, real or not real? Because again, this is fantasy football. All we can do is try to predict, right? Real or not real? Is that Philadelphia offense as dangerous?
Oh, I think it's real.
Think they could be.
I think the offense is
Okay.
real. Because once he starts throwing passing touchdowns and run, I don't know how you scheme for it.
Okay, so having said that they're real, okay, that was the prediction.
The problem is, who do you start as a running back?
And
That's the question.
my answer to that is none of them.
Yes, exactly.
So none of them.
When you have a running back by committee in this aspect, the way it's set up, you cannot trust the running backs.
So
Because you have no idea who
no
to pick.
clue who's going to get
But
it.
you will start A.J. Brown and you will start
Devontae Smith.
Devontae Smith.
All right.
And people, he had a crappy week 1.
4 targets, 0 catches.
Week one.
4 targets.
Let it go.
0. Adam.
Week 1. Let it
We're
go.
looking at you, buddy. We gave you a shout out in the last video. My buddy Adam from Ohio. Listen, you gave up too soon. Okay. Now, I know you only dropped him in 1 league. You never should have started him over DK. Not going to blame you for that because whoever would have thought.
Yeah, I don't know what you were drinking, but yeah, I don't know why would you start him over DK?
Not going to blame you for that because.
But you probably were thinking Geno. You're probably thinking Geno Smith was
right.
not going to be that productive, but it is very smart.
He was.
Yeah, and he ended up being very productive in Denver because nobody gave him a chance. It was supposed to be the Russell Wilson show.
All right.
So and now Denver should have won because who fumbles the ball twice in the 1 yard? Denver. Well, Russell could have tried to throw it and been picked.
Yeah. How'd that go in the Super Bowl?
Yeah,
Marshawn Lynch as your running
hey,
back.
we got the best running back in the league with a dang attitude. But you know what? We're going to throw it.
We got beast mode, but we're going to make sure we target whoever Malcolm Butler's on.
And you're telling me
Smart
on a Super Bowl on the line, Marshawn Lynch in the backfield. You're telling me he's not going to run over the entire New England defense to get into the end zone?
Bold strategy there,
Bold strategy, Cotton. Bold strategy.
Okay, no offense. No
Sorry.
No offense.
That's just one of those. That's one of those things.
Yeah, these are the kind of
like you're looking at depressed Tom Brady on the sideline to go to ecstatic Tom Brady, knowing that he just won a Super Bowl and he didn't have to do anything.
And wait a minute, we just said in another
Tom
video,
Brady. Oh, again.
Hey, so. What was the score of the Falcons versus the Patriots game?
Are
we giving Tom Brady too much credit, or should we just be taking away from the teams that he was playing against?
No.
Okay, Tom. No, you're fine. TB12, you're
Tom's a preparer, unlike Jamarcus Russell.
You know, the thing is, you have to take advantage of whatever situation you're put in. Very good. Yeah. All right. So. Okay, folks, I lost my train of thought. Let's get back to
Sorry,
we're
back to Philly.
All right,
so from a running back perspective, you can't start any of it. From a fantasy standpoint,
right?
You cannot start anything. Philly fans, be excited. You're gonna have a great
That's
year.
a good problem to have.
You have a great
now,
year.
I will say, yes, they're probably not startable. I would definitely make sure that you've got all 3 of those guys.
But
they're all rosterable, just not startable.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. After week 4, look at it, and then you're going to find out whose role is taking on what.
Yeah, the cream will separate.
Yes, it will separate because you have to look at it that way. Because literally 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're actually running a playbook now. You're not running preseason,
right?
Stuff. Muff plays or whatever.
The cream will rise to the top,
and you'll see. And then injuries are going to play a
and
big
that's the other thing. This is the NFL, and running backs get hurt more often than any other position. So,
and that's not why they're coveted anymore because they get hurt.
So roster all of them. Be careful who you start. Pay attention to the injuries. Pay attention to who is starting to separate themselves. Yeah. So Jalen Hurts,
kind of see his theme. It's pay attention to what's going on.
Well, and that's been we've talked about that in so many of our videos. Pay attention. Now, am I saying that you have to live, eat, sleep, drink fantasy football like
yes.
I do? Yes, of course you do! Yes, of course you do!
No, just kidding. It's really...
Right, no.
You don't have to.
Make sure it's fun, guys. If you're not obsessed like I am, that's okay. I'm obsessed. I know it. I love it. But like I said, to me, draft day is like Christmas morning.
Yeah, football's great.
I love football. Anything to do with football. All right, so Jalen Hurts startable. Go ahead and roster all the running backs from Philly. Start paying attention, see who rises.
And if you're playing a defense, you might want to look at Philly.
They got some studs on that defense.
They do have a few studs. And Detroit,
and they'll get
I'll be honest with you, Detroit's a fluke. And when you've had a team that's been so bad for so long, that does set in on the opponent that you're playing. It does make a mental note on there, no matter what they say. Right. Like, oh, we're playing Detroit. It does make a mental note.
What is the saying? You always play up or down the level of the competition. So all right, we're gonna get to Detroit though because they can be scary. They can be a scary good team.
Yes.
All right, so let's go to the wide receivers for Philly because all right, so we said Jalen Hurts startable. I mean, he's going to get his touchdowns on the ground. Eventually, he'll get some through the air.
A.J. Brown is a must.
A must start, folks. A must start. Now, like I said, I'm proud to admit I own him in 2 of my 4 leagues that we do either redraft style or dynasty. In fact, in my dynasty league, he still has 2 more years left on contract for me. I'm really, really happy about that. Devontae Smith, I probably at this point would not start him. Does that mean you need to go out and drop him? No. Again, don't overreact to 1 week.
No. I wouldn't start him this week because you're playing the Saints. Saints have a great cover team. They're second. No.
They play Minnesota this week.
Oh, the who?
We're talking about Philly now.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Don't forget Tampa's playing the Saints.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so way to keep me on track there.
But at the same time, Minnesota might put up a lot. That could be... Okay, folks, I would not start Devontae because we saw the goose egg, but he did get 4 targets.
But Minnesota's second, still, I'll go with Minnesota's secondary. I mean, you got Hunter Smith running back there, right? I mean, he's an All-Pro.
Don't drop him, folks.
Don't start him.
Don't start him. Don't start him, but don't drop him. He's way too good. Mm-hmm. He at some point he will be productive. It might have just been a game plan. They may have just schemed it that way for that game.
That game could be a shootout too.
I think it will be. I talked about this in another video. In the first one that we did, I actually picked up Kirk Cousins, and I'm going to start him over Aaron Rodgers this week because I think there's going to be a lot of points.
No,
in
that's
that game.
That's a smart pick.
That's a track meet waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's look at Dallas Goedert here. So he was actually fairly productive from a tight end perspective. I'm going to say he's startable, but that's not so much about him.
That's only if you have to start him.
But again, that's not only so much about him. That's more about the position in fantasy football as a whole.
Right.
Let's look at big picture here. So I will take a tight end like him that is at least involved in the offense, on a good offense. But I'm not saying that he's great. I'm saying that shows you just how weak the tight end position is.
It is. It's weak, and honestly, in the Phillies' offense, he is about the 5th choice if you're looking for, offensive production. So,
yeah.
Realistically on the play call.
Right, yeah, because you have your options at running back, you have Brown, you got Devontae.
And you got your options at receiver, and then you also have Jalen who can run. Right. So he's really more set there to be that blocking, hot read type guy.
Quick outlet.
He may be
every once in a while down the seam.
He may be touchdown oriented inside the 20, just because of the route production. It just depends because you're going to be focused on your receivers and your running backs.
Right.
So, but that's an iffy start unless you have somebody better to put in there.
Right. So let's put this in perspective, folks. I'm going to say go ahead and start him unless you have a better option. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you have another tight end, one of those more top tier tight ends, obviously.
And the matchup too. You could have a lower tier tight end, but he could end up having a matchup that's gonna suit.
Right.
So you just kind of have to look.
Yep. And if you think about it, like on paper, looking at Philly, it actually should set up well for Dallas Goedert because they're not going to be able to focus on him. The safeties are going to have to worry about A.J. Brown. Right. They're going to have to worry about Devontae Smith.
And it just depends on the game plan that Philly puts in place.
It does, but in week 1 we saw some usage, but those running backs,
yeah, and it all depends. If they stop the running backs, then you go to the receivers. So then, if you're stopping the running game, that means he's going to be becoming a very valuable asset, right, in the passing game because he's going to be doing all that over the middle, last read type drop. So and that's where that's. But if the running game's going, Philly is dangerous.
They could be a scary good team coming out.
I actually see them winning the division. I really do.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep.
Especially now that Prescott's gone.
I think even before Prescott was gone.
Yeah. They gotta
Having said that,
they gotta get rid of Jerry.
Yeah. Well, he is at least entertaining, if nothing else.
True.